officially welcome to today's webinar. The topic of the webinar today is how to create a skills matrix in 3 easy steps. And if you're coming from something like Excel, for example, you will already ask yourself, hey, what? 3 easy steps? That's unbelievable. However, I will show you how you can do it in AG5. It is not, it's not magic, it's not difficult. You can also create a matrix easily in AG5. Oops. Before we start, a few words to myself. My name is Stefan Schneider. You probably can hear it from my accent. I'm from Germany originally, but I do live here in the Netherlands, in Den Haag. Today we have really sunny weather and beach weather actually. So later today I might head over to the beach. And before I do that, of course, I want to have this webinar with you all. My main job at AG5 is an implementation specialist, which means I help new clients and new customers to get all their data into the system. I'll train them how AG5 works, and I want to set them up for success so they can, of course, use AG5 and then obviously also create matrices in 3 easy steps. If you have not heard of AG5 yet, this is our main mission. We want to visualize skill gaps and make it easier for you then, of course, to close them. We all know human resources are valuable. We want to make sure that employees are properly trained. Most of you come from highly regulated industries, operating maybe heavy machinery. So it's really crucial that everybody is trained so they can operate and they can fulfill their jobs. The session itself will last roughly 30 minutes. As I mentioned in the beginning, we do have 10 minutes at the end reserved for questions that you can ask. However, I will have an eye on the chat. So if there's a question coming up and it would make sense, then of course I will answer it right away. Otherwise, if a question would be too much or too long to answer, then of course you will follow up with an email to make sure that you get all the information that you need. You will also get a recording of this session and you will get the slides that I'm showing here if you would want to rewatch it then. And of course, you can also find it on our YouTube channel where all our webinars are also stored. So I'm really interested, of course, not only where you're from, but also have you ever built a skill matrix before? Maybe in Excel, maybe with a different software, or do you say, no, this is completely new for me, I'm just curious and I want to join and see what this is all about. Let me know what your experience is so far. Okay, I can see a lot of people are proficient in Excel and Google Sheets. Nice. Then of course this will be ideal for you because then you can see how it's different to Excel and how you can make your life a little bit easier. By the end of this webinar, what will you learn and what will you know? So first and foremost, of course, you want to understand what the skill matrix even is and how it works in AG5. What is the difference to, for example, an Excel-based skill matrix? How can you build one in AG5 based on different org structures, right? So do you want it, for example, built by a team, maybe by a job role? Is it for a department or maybe for the complete site that you're working on? So this is all that you can see here. Also, how can you identify skill gaps in a skill matrix? So if you look at it on one glance, how can you easily spot where do you need to have additional training? Where do you need maybe plan a training for the future? And then also, how can you read and assess your team and your workforce on one glance to make sure that everybody is compliant? Before we jump into the system, of course, you want to make sure that we're all on the same level understand what even is a skill matrix. You coming obviously from Excel, you know what you can, what you see in a matrix. But what are the common questions you ask yourself, right? If you look in a matrix and that you want to have answered, you want to know, is my team qualified to do that job? What type of skill gaps do I even have? Do you need to schedule a specific training? Who needs to be retrained in something if you're working with a validity period of a skill? So when does somebody need to be retrained? Best example is a first aid responder. That's a skill that needs to be retrained every, I think, year, every 2 years, depending where you're from. And yeah, of course, you want to see it ideally on one glance in your matrix. So how do we create a skill matrix? For this, we want to jump into AG5 now. And at this point, of course, this is not a basic training. So at this point, we assume that all the employees are already in the system and that all the skills are already in the system. How can we put those skills into AG5? For example, during the onboarding, of course, right? So if you would work with me in your onboarding, I would make sure that I import all your different employees into the system, also your skills. But we also have on top of it integrations that can be running that automatically import your employees from your HR tool, or maybe from your learning management system, the skills, that there's an automation happening that feeds automatically data into AG5. So you don't even have to worry about anything. If you have a new employee starting, for example, that automatically comes into AG5, gets assigned a specific department or a specific job role, and then based on this, they will have skills, a skill set and requirements, and would show up in your matrix, depending, of course, what matrix you're going to build. The example that we can see here is a matrix based on the machines. That's a common one, right? But you could also build a matrix based on a job role, based on a department, whatever would make sense for you. Let's have a quick look here on our employee tab, right? So this is where we can see all our different employees. If I open one employee, I can already see that they are part of a specific organizational structure for a machine. They are part of a specific department, and they are also assigned a specific job role. And based on these groupings, you can create a matrix in a few easy clicks. And then, of course, you can also see the skills in that matrix to see, hey, logistics expert 1 is a job role. Is he proficient, Ray, with all those specific skills here, right? If we jump to the next tab here, we can see our skills. This is a flat list of all our skills that we have in the system. That, of course, part of a skill matrix that you can build. And then here, the next little icon leads you to your skill library, which is always what you can see in your matrix. But important part where you can put the people in a matrix happens here under the organizational tab. In here, you can create an organizational structure based on what you want to see in the system and based on what you want to put requirements on. A common organizational structure for requirements is, for example, if you open this one up, the department. Right, so I created or we created here a department structure. We can see the logistics department, logistics team 1 and 3. If I open this one up, I can see all those people in my logistics team 1, and then I can also see all my skills assigned to that specific team. This all together tells me already that I have 10 people in this specific team and have 7 skills that are assigned to that team to be proficient in. And this is something that I can easily build a matrix on for the team lead, for example, to see, hey, how is team 1 of the logistics department doing currently? Are they all trained? Do we need to schedule a retraining, classroom event, anything like this, right? Other organizational structures could be here the machine lines. We already saw in the beginning the machines matrix that we had here with the machine R&T, right? If I open this one up, I have 7 people sitting in that specific grouping and 21 skills. And if I open up now the matrix that we can see here, if we look at one that is already existing, this is exactly what I can see. I have my 7 people here, and I have all my different skills here on top that are coming from my skill library, where I have put requirements in place. And what else do I see on one glance here, right? I can see, for example, if I look at my colleague Timo, I see that for this specific skill, machine lines know-how, you need to be trained up to a level 2 of that pie chart because we see that frame around it. And we can see Timo actually is trained, so he is completely compliant with that specific requirement. On top of this, which is really, really nice compared to, for example, Excel, if I click on that specific result, I can already see when was it added. And if I click on the details, I can also see that there was a certificate uploaded specifically for that result. So you don't have to go to different folders, you don't have to run around and search for something. It is all on one glance within that matrix. You don't even have to go anywhere else. But you can see when was it added. Today, right? I added it before the webinar. You can see also that there's a certificate. If I look at the next spot right here for the master data know-how, I can see there's this exclamation point. This is a sign that there's actually a skill gap. It is required of Timo. And why is it required of him? The system tells us. You can see in the matrix it is required because he's logistic expert level 2, the job role, but also because he's working on that specific machine. So we actually do have 2 reasons why he needs to be trained in this one. And if I would want to add a result, I can simply click here on add a result. I can override an expiration date if I say I want they to be retrained after a specific amount of time. However, if a skill already has an expiration date that we say the skill is valid for 2 years anyway, then you don't have to fill it out. Then the system automatically obviously calculates this for you. You can add a remark in here if you want. You can upload a certificate if you want. You can just drag and drop it in here. You can see a certificate, and then I can click on save. And that's pretty much it. We added a result for the matrix. It is in here. Now I know Timo was trained in that specific skill. There's a check mark. He's compliant and he can do that specific task. And if you have a look through the matrix itself, you can see all kinds of different symbols in here. We do have a legend here in the top right corner. If you open this one up, we can see what all those different symbols mean. But we have a different rating scales that we can put in place. And they are, by the way, custom, so you can create with whatever rating scale you want to see in the system. And you can also see the different symbols here at the bottom, for example, expire soon. So this bell icon here tells me, hey, Chris is currently still trained in that specific skill, but it is expiring soon. So I need to take action and plan a retraining, for example. And when I say I need to take action, then of course AG5 or the system can support me by this, because we not only have the visual in here that warns you and say, hey, be aware something's about to happen. We can also put a so-called workflow in place, which means the system sends an email warning out to Chris, the employee, or to the manager or whoever email you want to put in there that says, hey, be aware from one of your employees, from Chris, this skill is about to run out, so they know how to, that they need to reschedule something. You can, of course, also make adjustments slide to the matrix itself. If you want to have the columns inverted, you can change the size of the header or the row a little bit, depending how much text you have there, just to accommodate a little bit to what you see in there. Another interesting part here is the View in the Insights button. I saw that, Guy, you were asking about a graph, about different shifts and different levels. We do not have a spider graph built into the system. We do have a regular graph. That tells you the compliance rate of your specific team here. If you scroll down a little bit, you can also see, for example, who is the most compliant, which skills have the most issues, where maybe you want to see, or not issues, let's say, which skills need to be retrained the most or trained the most. So you can maybe schedule a classroom event for this one. And here at the bottom, you can also have it broken down by employee, which employees are the most compliant, which employees need to be trained a little bit more, right? Who has some room for improvement. And yeah, so this is something you can easily see on your Insights dashboard. You can also remove that filter based on that specific matrix, and then it would simply tell you the overall compliance of the whole company itself. But of course, now we want to know how can we create a matrix from scratch. At the beginning, we said, hey, in 3 easy steps, you can create a matrix too. But now, of course, you also want to see how that really works. In this case, click here in the top right corner, new matrix. And then you have 3 steps here that you have to go through. So the system kind of takes you by your hand to make sure that you see the matrix that you want. First, select the employees. If you open this one up, you can see a flat list of all the employees in here. I always recommend a little bit the tree list, because then you kind of know where you're coming from and what levels you're going through. In this case, let's say we want to make one for our logistics team, logistics team 1, for example, or we could also say the whole logistics department, right, depending what we want to see. Maybe let's do the whole department in this case, and then I can click on next. The next part I want to search from are the skills. Again, I click here, I see a flat list of all my skill libraries, or I can go through the tree list and I can see here my organizational structures, or I can see my skill libraries. And this is actually an important distinction that you can see here, because you never will choose the employees themselves, or you never will choose the skills itself. You will always choose the groupings where the people or the skills are put together. So it's either the grouping for the employees or the categories, for example, from your skill library that you have. But if you open this one up, you can see the same categories that we saw earlier here in our skills tab. And that's where you choose the skills from. If you decide you want to choose your skills from your organizational structure, then you won't be able to see the category names, but then it will be limited to what exactly is in your specific org structure. Otherwise, you can also just use the category and filter afterward. In this case, let's say I'm not so sure which skills are required. So I say skills and certificates in general, right? So this is now all my skills that I have in the system. I can click on next. The system suggests automatically a name that I can of course adjust if I would want to. But here, let's say logistic department, skills and certificate. That's pretty easy to understand what is actually there. I have my department with 21 people. I have all my skills and certificates with 40 skills. But now I say, you know what? If a skill is not relevant for anybody of those people, I don't want to see it. So please filter down to only if there's at least a requirement put in place. And then I can click on save. And that's pretty much it. And then you can see here already on top from 21 employees, and we have 30 skills out of 40, because 10 of those skills in our libraries are not relevant for anybody of our employees, and therefore we don't need to see them in that specific matrix. If I scroll a little bit down, I can actually see the different results that my employees currently have. I can see logistics team 1 and the logistics team number 3, but I can open it up or close it, and then I can see how my workforce is actually doing on one glance. Here on the right side, we do have a skill gap analysis already in place. And this is, for example, if we say for the machine line know-how, I need 2 people from all of my team that need to be trained, and up to a specific level, here to a level 3. And currently we do not have anybody here in a level 3. Therefore, I can see on one glance, hey, there's a skill gap for me. If I would now, for example, say, who is here? Let's say Stein. He gets trained up to level 3. Then we can see 2 required, 1 is achieved. We have an active skill gap of 1 people. So there are 2 different types of requirements we can put in place. One is a hard requirement that says everybody needs to be trained or in a specific thing. Or we can say, for my team, only 2 people need to be trained. Right, first aid responder, emergency assistant, stuff like this, you most of the time don't need to be everybody be trained in. It's enough if you maybe only have I don't know, 3 or 4 people that are a trained first aid responder. And this is actually it. So you created already a matrix and a few easy steps. And here I can see, for example, that blue dot here, if I open this one up, I can see that there was a self-assessment request that was sent from the manager. So this is actually waiting for a result to be added by that specific employee, because we do have the option in AG5 to send a self-assessment request to the employees to say, hey, can you rate yourself? Most of the time it happens before the quarterly, before the yearly, depending what cadence you choose to talk with your employees for something like this, just to make sure, hey, where are you at? And then the manager can go into one-on-one session and discuss where they're currently at with their skills. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So now you know how you can create a matrix from scratch easily in AG5. I see there's a question from Guy. Did you mention that it can work together with Chris? The Chris I was referring to was actually the employee Chris. Chris Meyer, not a software Chris. But let's see, Guy, your whole question from before. We would like to see a spider graph on shift level with 4 levels, not trying to see a SWOT analysis of the shift. So as I mentioned before, we do not have the possibility within AG5 to create a spider graph. However, we do have, you can connect something like Power BI, for example, to AG5 to extract the data and build a spider graph. But what we can easily do, of course, we can create an organizational structure that is not only based on your department, but also based on shift, right? So we could, for example, say now for the logistics team 1, we can put in here another subgrouping. We could call this one shift 1. Do we have a shift? No, we already have a shift 1. And those grouping types, by the way, are also custom. So if there would be something missing, you can easily create that yourself, including an icon that you can choose from. So now we would have a shift here. I could assign, for example, Olivia and Britt to shift 1, and then I can easily say the skill requirement for that specific shift of that skill is achieved. In this case, of course, it's not a 4-level skill, but it's achieved fail skill. But if it's multiple levels, of course, you can change this too. And then you can easily use this to create a matrix for you where you can see, hey, how is my shift 1 doing? How is my shift 2 doing? And then if you look at the logistics one, now you can see here, for example, the different shifts in your team. That would get at least cover a few of that topics already. Great, let's jump back real quick in our slides that we can see here. So to sum it all up, right? If you want to build a matrix from scratch yourself, what do you need to ask yourself to make sure that you're getting where you want to? Especially if you're working with something like Excel, where you have to put a lot of work into it, you want to make sure that you already have the goal in mind where you want to get. So what department or what team are you building it for? Guy, you brought a great example. You want to see specific shifts. So this is the next question. How do you want to structure it? Is it to specific roles, machines, shifts? So you need to make sure that you have that specific structure in mind already. Do you have the skills somewhere? Do you know which skills are required of that colleagues in your shift or of that employees? What data do you need to put into your file or into AG5 in this case, of course, to make sure you can build a matrix? And what skills do you need to have as a requirement on what specific level? Do you want to have a hard requirement that says everybody in shift 1 needs to be proficient in that skill? Or do you want to have something like you can see here on the right side with a soft requirement, where you say not everybody in that team needs to be trained on level 4, but maybe only 3 people or 2 people for level 4, then a few more for level 3, right? And then you can down the line to make sure that you build exactly that matrix that you need and that you can work with. Now is the time for some additional questions if you have them. Of course, we also do have some common questions here that we always hear, especially during the onboarding. We can go through them. If you have another question, of course, please put them into the chat. How does AG5 pull the employee and training data? Can we connect to HR and LMS system? Yes, of course, I mentioned it already earlier. We do have the possibility to connect with multiple different software solutions to pull in data automatically. And the more data happens and comes in automatically, the less admin work it is for you, of course, right? So this is always really, really helpful. What is the easiest way to keep skills and certifications up to date? Do employees and managers handle it? So this is actually a little bit of multiple questions put into one. The easiest way, of course, if you work with a skill that says it needs to be retrained eventually, then you can put a validity period into that skill. So how long is that skill valid until it needs to be retrained? So when you set up that skill in AG5, you can already define that period. Also, how much in advance you want to be warned if a skill is running out. And then based on this, of course, the system can give you the visual in your matrix with that bell icon, or it can send out an email to the manager or to the employee to make them aware, hey, please take action, you need to be retrained. And do employees or managers handle it? That is, of course, a decision that you would need to make ultimately. We do have the possibility, for example, to give employees the rights to make changes to their own skill set, and then the manager needs to approve it, or a team lead needs to approve it. So there's a specific setting to make sure that there's a 4I principle, that they don't just add whatever they want into the system. Can I build a new skills matrix fast or reuse one that I already set up for another team? We just did it together. I don't think it gets any faster than this, so I would recommend just build it from scratch. Or it's 3 clicks and then you have your skill matrix exactly the way you want it. How does AG5 reduce my spreadsheet work? What task does it automate? Best example is that you can see on that spreadsheet or on that matrix in AG5 the current always up-to-date data. You can see, for example, if there's a certificate uploaded, you can see what level is required. You can see if it's about to run out, the validity period, if it's going through. The system can send out automatically the notifications about it. So there's a lot of admin work that a software or like AG5 can take off your shoulders and make your life then ultimately a little bit easier. What insights can I get from AG5 that I can't see in Excel? I think I explained it multiple times already today. So the when a skill is running out, it's difficult to see in an Excel sheet. So for how long is something valid? It's difficult if you click on an Excel sheet to see, hey, was there a certificate uploaded? Maybe who even added the result? When was it added, the result, right? So it's all information that it's a little bit more difficult to track in an Excel sheet, which you can easily see in AG5. There's always a track record that tells you, hey, who added that result? When was it added? What was the result before? Is there a certificate uploaded? So this record of changes in the system is always visible. There's a question: do you customize if the customer would like a spider in AG5 instead exporting to Power BI? That is something I do not, I can't answer at this point, Guy. Currently, I can only say we do not have a spider graph in AG5. Not so sure if this will be happening anytime soon. But if you would have support to connect to Power BI, of course, somebody from our IT could help in this case. But you currently cannot build a spider graph within AG5. If this all made you a little bit curious, or as you, Guy, for example, if you say, hey, I want to explore a little bit more what possibilities there are with Power BI, please feel free to reach out to us. Maybe book a personalized demo session where we can set up a training ground for you, where you can play around a little bit and explore the possibilities yourself. And I'm curious to hear how valuable this webinar was for you. Did you get some information that made you say, hey, okay, that's interesting, maybe I want to go and try out AG5? Or do you have any feedback how we can improve? We're, of course, always super curious to hear what it is and what you think. And before we end the session, I also want to point out that we have on our AG5 website here under the resource button, you can always have a look at the knowledge base where we explain a little bit more of the software itself. And we also have our YouTube channel where you can find the webinars if you want to rewatch, for example, a webinar or want to watch a basic training. Yeah, I think that's it. And thank you for your participation. And I wish you all a beautiful day. And maybe I can see you in the future in one of the onboardings. That would be great. Otherwise, of course, I wish you all the best and maybe see you soon.